Hi everyone, it's Yvette Blowitz from SPAITGIRL.com and welcome to Feel Good From Within. I'm super excited to be here with you today and with our very special guest, Sharon Kolkka, who is one of Australia's leading wellness advisors, whose innovative approach to well-being shaped the highly successful and transformative programs at Gwinganna Lifestyle Retreat, where she previously held the position of general manager and wellness director. Sharon is a trailblazer in the field of stress resilience and highly regarded as a keynote speaker at wellness events throughout Australia and right around the world. She's a renowned thought leader, educator, and wellness program designer. And I'm so grateful to be sharing her co-authored book with Dr. Sharon Coates, How to Be Well, a handbook for women. And in today's podcast show, we're going to be talking about what women face, what's the dilemma, how do we juggle our busy, demanding lives and our never-ending to-do lists with the essential need for self-care. With so many women feeling overwhelmed, frustrated, exhausted, and either ignoring the signs of burnout. Today, we're going to be talking to Sharon on what we can do to feel good from within. Sharon, welcome to the Spirit Girl podcast show. How are you today?
Hi, Yvette. It's so good of you to have me. I'm so excited to chat with you, and hello to everybody who follows you. So, hi, happy to be here.
So grateful to be here with you today. And also, I'm so grateful our audience is tuning in, and I really hope you're going to learn so much today. Before we dive into your book, can you tell our audience a little bit about yourself?
I've never known anything else in my career apart from wellness. I started in the fitness industry in 1980. I know, yes, I'm giving you an idea of how long I've been around, but I was a young woman and the fitness industry was just started. I had a background in exercise science and I taught aerobic classes through the 80s and the 90s, and I was a manager of health clubs, and, you know, we wore those leotards over the top of the tights back then. It was never a good look, and I'm so pleased that fashion has never come back. I moved into the health retreat world in 1995, working as a personal trainer, and I had a great deal of passion for helping people to feel better, to feel well. In 2002, I was invited to begin Gwinganna Lifestyle Retreat with owner and founder Tony DeLead. And I was there for 2 years before the place opened. So I had influence with the architects, the builders, and able to start guest experience and create a wellness philosophy that was just really different to what had been offered back then. And it was very simple. It was just emulating human history and making sure that we follow as humans what our bodies are designed to do. So I stayed there as general manager and wellness director for 16 years, and I hung my hat up from that role in January 2022. How good was my timing? And I really wanted to share what I'd learnt, all the wellness wisdom, and to take some of those ideas out into different workplaces and share it out across the community, which is how the book came into fruition as well.
That's such an impressive story, and I can resonate because I used to be an aerobics instructor back when cassettes were in, and let's just say it's good that fashion has moved on. Now you have co-authored this book, How to Be Well. It's out everywhere. I've had the pleasure of reading it, doing the personal audit. It's like a wellness retreat that you can do at home, and it's so informative. There is so much information here. I learned so much. It really is a must read for anyone wanting to improve their health. What's the meaning behind the book title, and what inspired you and Dr. Sharon Coates to want to even write it?
Well, I was very, very lucky to meet Dr. Sharon 25 years ago. She's an extraordinary integrative doctor with an absolute passion for research. And whenever I was doing anything in terms of Gwinganna Lifestyle Retreat, the educational program was a really big part of the experience there. I always believed that if people knew why they needed to do something, they would be more committed to actually make a change. We all know what we should do, But should is not as powerful as why I need to do this and it's going to make a difference. So Dr. Karen was always my sounding board and became a very dear friend over the years, and we're like best buddies these days. And she and I often talked about how if you went to Gwinganna Lifestyle Retreat, you had all of this information just at your fingertips, that you just had all this research and all this education about how to look after yourself. But what if you couldn't go to Gwinganna Lifestyle Retreat? What if you were a carer? What if you weren't old enough? What if you had limitations? What if you couldn't afford to go to a place like that? So the book was really about capturing as much information as we possibly could to be able to share it with the larger community and make it accessible to women of all ages across our community, you know, from our daughters who are in their 30s right the way through to people in their 80s. Just small things can make a big, big, big difference. So How to Be Well was really understanding that it wasn't just a book about nutrition. It wasn't just a book about movement. It wasn't just a book about stress. It was a book that covered every aspect of what it means for us to be well, including our emotional well-being, how we sleep, even our genes and how our environment affects our genes, our hormones, and just really thinking about it from a one-stop book. How to Be Well is to look at all of these things, because I think others are really good at what we eat and other people are really good at exercise, but they don't sleep very well. And some people have their stress levels really together, but they don't eat very well. It's about understanding the domino effect of all of those different pillars of wellness that are really, really important for us to be well. And it's a how-to book. It's a solution book.
It's a beautiful book. I've got to say, I'm holding it up. You can go to the Spirit Girl YouTube channel. It's actually yellow. So it's so vibrant. How to Be Well. Was that a deliberate choice of color?
Oh, look, we were really, really lucky to work with EVO, who's an amazing artist and designer. As we said, we didn't want a book that had pictures in it of this is the food you should eat, this is what it looks like, or pictures of women looking healthy, you know, this is what a healthy woman looks like. We wanted it to be more abstract, and we wanted it to be really feeling that being well is how you feel. It's not necessarily how you look. So the vibrant yellow, it's just like sunshine. It just makes you feel like you want to be happy and you want to be well. And when you're talking about things in that book, we just love what EVO did in all the different designs and the way that she's presented the information, because there's a lot of information in there. So you really want to feel like it's a nice book to hold and it's a happy book to have with you.
It's such a beautiful book to hold. And there's a lot of information in there. You're so right.
Yeah.
And also it's so joyous. And after coming out of the pandemic and COVID, it just really speaks to you as the reader, how to be well.
Yeah.
And I even showed this to my mum, who's now in her late 70s.
Yes.
And she loved the book. She's going to be reading this book next. So I love that books just keep giving and giving.
Yeah.
And in the book, what I found really interesting was you talked about 3 states of being. Can you share that with our audience?
Karen and I, over our careers, because Karen was in clinical practice, really focused on women's health, whereas I was working in health retreats, and 70% of people who go to health retreats are women. So we both noticed that people would arrive either in a doctor's office or even at a health retreat in kind of 3 categories. Not that we want to give people a label, but give them an understanding that wellness isn't static. I don't know whether you've ever noticed that, but sometimes you feel better and other times things happen to you and you kind of don't feel yourself. Or maybe there's a diagnosis that you've got. You've got to do things more than you usually do to get back on track. So we kind of created these 3 states of being. The state of being called depleted is really to recognize that sometimes things happen to us. We may have a medical diagnosis, or we may have had a massive relationship breakup that's just broken our heart, or sometimes we're just so busy and we're so overloaded with life that we haven't taken great care of ourselves. just feel in this kind of depleted state. It's like we feel like we've got really low energy. We kind of sometimes feel like, I don't know whether I'll ever feel myself again. I don't know whether I can actually pick myself up and get myself going again. How am I going to get back? Can I get back to that well state of being that everybody talks about? And from that depleted state of being, Yvette, you have to recognize and understand that the steps to get there are slower and steadier. And we need to sort of take care of ourselves through those steps and not try to do too much too quickly and have high expectations on ourselves. So that's kind of a depleted state of being. So there's steps throughout the book to help you as a depleted state, if you resonate with that, that is really sort of helping you to understand how to go slow and ease yourself back into it. Then there's this surviving state of being. I think a lot of women kind of fall in this. And it's like where, yes, I've got everything going and I've got all the balls in the air and, you know, I'm ticking all my boxes and I'm busy and I'm doing my exercise and I'm eating. But gosh, if anyone throws me another ball, I'll just lose the plot. It's like we're just running on adrenaline. And when we slow down at the end of the night, we kind of feel a little bit wired and tired. It's almost like we kind of need to just sit ourselves in front of the television set and go, oh, and switch off. Or we need that glass of wine to actually help us to switch off because we're so wired and we're just so busy with what we're doing. And even though we don't feel unwell, we kind of know that if we stop for a moment and actually stopped and checked in with ourselves of how we're feeling, we'd probably feel very emotional about how much pressure's on us as a human. And then the thriving state of being is where we're just leaping out of bed in the morning, feeling amazing after a great night's sleep. We're facing our challenges with optimism. We're not irritated or impatient. We've actually got time at the end and energy at the end of our day to sort of interact with our family and take care of ourselves. So we're kind of at that place where it's that ideal state of being where we feel amazing. However, as I said earlier, it's not like that is static. Sometimes we can be thriving and something can happen to us and we can go into that really busy state and go into a surviving state. Or even be thriving, and this happened to me last year, and I put my foot in a hole and broke my leg and had 3 surgeries and just threw me into a depleted state of being. And it took me a while. It took me many, many months to actually get my functional movement back and to get myself back on track. You know, so sometimes through no fault of our own, we end up going backwards. So we always want to kind of move to this thriving state of being, knowing that there'll be times where we move statically up and down that. But ideally, we want to hit the thriving state of being and be there as long as we possibly can. So it's not a judgmental perspective. It's just how things are, right? We just don't always feel amazing all the time. And yet I think we have an expectation that we should.
I love your honesty, and I'm so glad that you've recovered. So you put the foot in the hole and then from there...
Snap.
Oh my goodness, that would have
Both
hurt
bones
so
in 3
much.
places, 3 surgeries, foot up in the air for 3 months, lost muscle mass, lost bone mass, couldn't walk at the end of it, gained body fat, all of it. Almost like the challenge of how do I get back as a woman, the wisdom years now. That's what we call postmenopausal women. We don't call them postmenopausal women. We say the age of wisdom.
That age of wisdom. I love that. And for someone who is such a go-getter like you doing exercise, I can't even imagine you having your foot up for 3 months.
And I think of it, when you think about breaking a leg, that's pretty heavy. However, I don't think it's as heavy as having a diagnosis of cancer, you know, or losing a life partner. So what we're trying to say is it's okay that we go through different states of being. And we wanted to provide a book that was a handbook of how to manage that.
Love that. So much on Instagram these days is you always got to be healthy, always happy, always active. You're always just full of life, healthy, well, everything is perfect. And this 3 states of beings really was a great reminder. And you just shared a story there, how you can be just going along and then something happens and then you switch back to a different state of being. And it's forever moving.
That's it. And that happens for our entire life as women, from when we first have our first menstruation right the way through until we have our last. and beyond. We are constantly, always trying our best to come back to that homeostasis of feeling the best we can. But I think taking care of ourselves is also about having self-compassion. It's also about recognizing sometimes that we just need to fall in a hole, literally, and just allow ourselves, but then to actually know how to bring ourselves back so that we feel ourselves again, because that's what it is. It's not what it looks like in a picture on an Instagram. It's how do you feel every day? And that comes back to our book, why you won't see these perfect images of women looking perfect, because in some ways we're imperfect, and that's the beauty. That's the journey of being a woman in this world.
Yeah.
And just exploring that experience and not losing sight of the fact that there will be highs and lows.
And I do have to say, I'm glad you didn't have photos of perfect women in there looking super healthy, because when you're feeling like crap, that's the last thing you want to look at. And you think, you feel even more depressed. There are so many challenges facing women. You've worked with women for many, many decades now. What are you finding coming up more and more, especially at the moment?
I think most women are really struggling with deeply connecting to themselves. It's such a busy world. And the psychological and psychosocial stress that we're facing at the moment is unprecedented in our lifetime. Compared to some things that are going on in the world, it's a lot less. And some things that have happened in the past to women, it is a lot less, but it's still, how hard is hard, right? How hard is hard. What I find is that in order to get everything done, people kind of disconnect from themselves and just shove down how they're really feeling and just get on with it, which is okay for a period of time. But after months or years, we find that disconnection has somehow disconnected us from other people around us. And that disconnection can make a huge difference to how we feel about ourselves, how we feel about the world, whether we feel anxious, and whether we really take care of ourselves, not just on a physical level, but on an emotional and mental level as well. And I think that's probably one of our greatest challenges as women today, because we're not just doing it for ourselves, we're doing it for our family. And I think we have to be cautious and understand that children are learning what we experience. So if our lives are busy and stressed, they're learning busy and stressed. And the impact that that might be having on them is probably making their behavior shift and change, which is putting a lot more pressure and stress on us. There's a lot going on. And then on top of that, I should be eating this and I should be exercising and I must be doing this and I must be doing that. So we hope that the book provides people with simple, basic, everyday solutions like how to sleep better. If I can sleep better, I'm going to deal so much more with not only my performance and productivity at work, but my capacity to be emotionally solid, in a calm state of excitement, to be able to deal with the challenges of my family, my relationships, not just the relationships that are intimate, but the relationships we have with our family and our mothers, even the relationships we have with our mothers, which probably many women like me didn't have the best of relationships with my mum. So, that journey in itself is how do I connect to myself so that I can connect to other women? And it's not always talked about. We tend to focus on food and other things, which are important. But if you're deeply connected to yourself, you'll take much better care of yourself.
And one of the other things in your book, you talked about 3 zones.
The zones are essentially a color-coded system that helps people to understand how to go into rest and recovery and how to actually get productivity and performance and how to avoid getting too stressed. So essentially, the blue zone is our healing zone. It's our rest and recovery zone. And it's actually the parasympathetic nervous system. And if I can just say, most women don't spend enough time there. But it's like this. You have a phone, right? What do you have to do with that phone every day to make sure that it works?
Recharge it.
Our blue zone is literally our healing and recharging station. If we don't go there, there's no way that our hormones can be balanced, that we will have a good night's sleep, that we will have cellular repair, that we will have a healthy gut microbiome. because that's where our body actually goes into its healing zone. So that's the blue zone. The opposite of that is the red zone. And the red zone is where we've got far too many stress hormones in our sympathetic nervous system, and it's making us irritated and impatient and anxious and angry and frustrated. And we say and do things that we don't always mean because we're just on the edge of our emotions. It's not who we are, it's what we become under the influence of adrenaline and too much cortisol, which are our stress hormones. So that's the red zone. And then Karen and I invented the purple zone. The purple zone is technically part of the red zone, but we have a drip feed of stress hormones. So it's kind of like Goldilocks and the Three Bears. Not enough to get us productive and to get us going in the blue zone, too much and too reactive in the red zone, but the purple zone, we have that drip feed of stress hormones and we feel a calm state of excitement. We're collaborative, we're creative, we're not irritated, we're not stressed, but we're productive and we get things done. So what we talk about is balancing your nervous system and making sure that you're in your purple zone when you're getting things done and returning to your blue zone when you're not getting things done, and trying to avoid the red zone. And it's outlined quite in detail, as you know, in the book. So that we find is very, very helpful for people to mentally say, oh, I'm going to the red zone. I kind of need to take a breath. So when we breathe to slow things down, remember to exhale and take a longer exhalation than an inhalation. And that has been shown through research to actually calm us better than anything. It's like a manual override. So when we get stressed and we go to the red zone, we get short, shallow breathing. When we catch ourselves being there, we just say to ourselves, oh, I'm in the red zone. And we literally breathe in and do a long exhalation. And then there's a whole lot of information that we talk about in the book about how we think helpful thoughts in that moment and how that helps us to regulate and stay in our purple zone when we want to get things done.
That was such a great tip that you just shared with our audience. And thank you for explaining those zones because that was incredible. What was the most interesting thing that came up for you as part of the research for your book?
There was so much, and Karen is an absolute research bunny. So there was lots of information about nutrigenomics, which is how the environment speaks to our genes and turns some of the volume of the genes up and down. And that's a fascinating read in the last chapter. However, one of the things that really stood out to both of us and kind of shocked us was the research done by Paul Connolly. He's a professor in Belfast University. And back in 2002, he was interested in the impact that the Northern Ireland dispute with the English had on the children. And they did a research study looking at how the children felt. And maybe for some of your listeners that don't know, it was a battle between the Protestants and the Catholic in Northern Ireland. And what he found was that the children of the Catholic and the Protestant families and their communities and through going to school, they had such hatred of each other by age 5. And this is something they had learnt, they had been imparted to them. They were Protestant, they feared and loathed the Catholic, and vice versa. Both of us felt that was so incredibly sad because in the world of biochemistry, we often say that the biochemicals of resentment and revenge are so bad for us. It's like drinking poison and hoping the other poison will die. So we felt that these little children at age 5 had these biochemicals running around their system, and we wondered how that would impact these little children. Now, thankfully, there has been a lot of peace in that part of the world for many, many, many years, and long may it continue. But it made us think about the environment that we share with our children. If we have grudges, if we don't forgive, and we write quite a bit in a book about the limits of the grudge and how to be forgiving and those sorts of things. And we felt that that was a really big thing for us to be aware of and the impact that was having possibly on our children's health.
Thank you for sharing that research, because in your book, that really did surprise me that you had a pretty big section on forgiveness. It was such a reminder that we have to learn how to forgive for our own health.
Yeah.
Because if we don't, that can prevent us from feeling well.
That's right. It's such an important point, Yvette, and I don't think it's talked about enough. But people who score high on forgiveness actually have better heart health, better blood pressure and heart rate and all sorts of things. So we tend to think it's just what I eat and it's just how I move. And those things are important, but it's how we think and how we feel every day, how we allow life to move with us and through us, just allowing life to come and go, and to just allow the highs and lows in life to be a part of the experience that we have here on this planet, which is extraordinary. It's a privilege and it's a huge gift.
Well, your book with Dr. Sharon Coates is a huge gift to all of us around the world. And I'm so grateful you went to all of the effort to make it happen. You help so many people to feel well. How do you actually take care of yourself? And what are a couple of your self-care rituals?
Without doubt, I prioritize sleep. That is my number one ritual, is to prioritize sleep. And that means that if I have to get up early in the morning, I make sure that I go to bed early the night before. And I also make sure that I don't drink any alcohol on that particular night, because alcohol will sort of interfere with your sleep patterns. And I'm really back on a sleep pattern. I eat very well. I only eat organic, and that is, I choose to shop and use my money to give my voice that this is how I want our food to be. And we forget sometimes that we vote with our money. And I understand that it's more expensive to do that, and it is a lifestyle choice, and some people may not be able to do that. So I would say, can you grow some of those important greens on your balcony? Because of course, getting those green things in every day for our liver is so important. I do Pilates, and I'm a horse rider. And I like the idea of being farm fit, which is what really threw me when I broke my leg last year. Because getting back to my farm fit, being able to pick up the 20-kilo feed bags and put them into the big feed containers that I have, and carrying bales of hay, that didn't come straight away. I had to work back at that. So I'd say they're the main ones: sleep, and also eating organically, and being farm fit, and riding my horses, and doing Pilates for function. I think that's really important. And I think the final one is I really work on not stressing, and I do that through meditation.
I love that. What is your hope for your newfound book readers?
Karen and I would say the same thing here. I hope that they realize that there's no holy grail. Yes, there are superfoods. Yes, there are things that you can do to help you with your goals, but really it's the basics that make the difference. You're not going to sleep well if you eat a lot of sugar and you drink a lot of caffeine and you drink a lot of alcohol. So include those things in your life, but do it in a way of understanding and being honest with your body, how it affects you. So just eating regularly, eating healthy, moving your body, being farm fit or having a sport or going to the gym, whatever moves you. Getting out in nature is really important. Slowing down, settling the mind, thinking helpful thoughts. I hope that they understand that all of these things provide the foundation for you to then balance everything else. So if your menstrual cycle's out of whack, come back to the basics before you start figuring out, what do I need to do? Where's my quick fix? What do I need here? So if you get all the basics right, I'm hoping that that's the biggest message. And that's not hard. It's just what you do most of the time will make the biggest difference.
Wow. Thank you, Sharon Kolkka.
Thank you.
And your book, How to Be Well, a Handbook for Women with Dr. Sharon Coates, is one of my all-time favorites, a must.
Oh, thanks, Yvette. Thank you.
Pouring all of your experience, knowledge, alongside with Dr. Sharon Coates and all of the research and your genuine, I'm getting goosebumps as I say this, but your authentic genuineness of wanting to help women.
Thank you.
Really just wanting to help women
Yeah.
in an easy form has been incredible.
Yeah.
So thank you again. Now, Sharon, how can we stay in touch with you after this podcast show?
Well, Karen's very good with Instagram, I have to say. So you can follow her on Karen Coates at Instagram. I do have an Instagram account. I'm not as active as she is. But if they want to contact me, just contact me through bewellsk@gmail.com. Send me an email, bewellsk@gmail.com.
Sharon, I could talk to you forever. We could have had a marathon podcast show. So I'm going to have to get you back on the show again. But thank you again for spending your precious time with us and our beautiful global audience. I'm so grateful. And congratulations again to you and Dr. Karen Coates on the book. We'll say goodbye. Thank you again.
And thank you for sharing our message, Yvette. We're so grateful. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening in to this week's Spirit Girl podcast episode. I'm super grateful. I hope you found this conversation of benefit to you. In support, I would love for you to subscribe to the Spirit Girl podcast show, to also leave a 5-star rating and a review of what you think too. Share this show with your family, friends, and community, and subscribe to my mailing list at SPAITGIRL.com, and follow Spirit Girl or Yvette Blowitz on any social media app. And together, let's feel good from within.